Well, last night was a huge night for Democrats. Let's just not sugarcoat it. It was a huge night for Democrats. Major swings across the board, nationwide. Obviously, the race everybody was looking at was the Miami race, in which Eileen Higgins, the Democratic candidate, or she's the Democratic known candidate because it was a nonpartisan field, going against Emilio Gonzalez, the Republican, and she won by nearly 20%. This was a huge win, especially for a non-Cuban candidate. We're going to go ahead and get into that district in a few. Now, we had the Georgia race, the 121st district in Georgia, in which the Democrats flipped it. We're going to go into that race as well, look at that maps, because Georgia and the South is starting to look a little bit interesting. We're going to look at some other state seats in Florida. We have a state Senate and a state House seat in Florida to just look at a little bit. And then there was an Iowa election that the Republicans won. They were expected to win, but it was significantly by less than what the Republicans should hope for. So let's go ahead and first look at what's going on in Miami. So here is the Miami map. As you can see, Eileen Higgins won 59.5 to 40.5, an 18.9% win. So essentially a 19% win. But let's go ahead and look at the map. Where did the votes come from? Where did the changes happen? And what can we glean from this result? And the important thing I think to remember here wasn't a high turnout rate. Okay, it wasn't a high turnout race, but it was the official general election race, or at least runoff race in this situation, for the mayor of Miami. So this wasn't like it was some special election that nobody knows about or whatever. People in Miami know about this election because it always happens this time every 4 years. So let's go ahead and look at the map. Up here, the very dark blue area, this is where like Little Haiti is, and in areas like that. So this is mostly African Americans, which is why you see the very high, high 80s, mid 90s, high 90s percentages for Eileen Higgins. As you get more down into Miami, it starts becoming more Hispanic, but still very, very Democratic. This kind of performed where we expected it to perform, but let's go ahead and look from Tamiami Trail, which is here, south, because this area here, which is still highly Hispanic, highly Cuban, this is where we see the switch. So I'm going to go over to the map from 2024, the precinct map, and as you can see, all of these precincts south of Tamiami Trail, all of them are in the red, or the very, very light red. So we can see Little Havana right here, and we'll talk about that in a few, but all these other races that we see, or other precincts that we see, 52% for Donald Trump, 55%, 55%, 54%, 54%, 55%. So you're seeing Donald Trump in the 50s. Now, if we go back to what Eileen Higgins did, look, 57% for Eileen Higgins, 58%, 52%, 55%, 52%, 56%, 52%. So you had a huge chunk of Hispanic, particularly Cuban voters voting for Eileen Higgins. And we'll get into, like I said, Little Havana and all that in a while. Now, this dark areas here, this is mostly your like rich white people who live there. And it's always been Democratic, as you can see, but you can see it's significantly more Democratic than in the past. So we do see some dark blues here, but we see significantly darker blues here. 82% here. Let's see, what was that precinct before? 70% for Kamala Harris. Usually Florida, this part of Miami-Dade County, or this part of Miami, has always been the white voters who are rich and vote liberal, even before you saw that shift start happening under Bill Clinton in the 90s. Now, let's go ahead and get over to Little Havana. So we kind of have like two precincts we're going to look at here. Now, remember, Eileen Higgins is a Democrat, and she is non-Hispanic, not just non-Cuban, non-Hispanic. So how would that play out? If we go ahead and look at how Donald Trump performed in these precincts, sorry, my mouth is not working totally today from all the speaking that I did during the live stream yesterday, you can see the Little Havana precincts had 65% for Donald Trump and 64% for Donald Trump. Okay, now if we go to the precincts. Yesterday, you only have 53% for Emilio Gonzalez and 55% for Emilio Gonzalez. So that is a huge shift. So you have voters in Little Havana saying, we're now going to vote more for the Democratic candidate who is not the Hispanic or not the Cuban American candidate. So it's not based off of ethnicity. It's no longer based on ideology or partisanship, maybe more on ideology, and you have the ideology shifting. This is a big shift. So what we see out here, red by the airport, that's pretty much expected. Let me zoom out and show you as well right here. So this is all what we expect. So a great showing here for Eileen Higgins. Now, I just want to mention I am on Blue Sky. So if you want to go ahead and check me out there, just go to Dave Trotter. You'll find me on Blue Sky. Please subscribe to the channel, like, and you can do a one-time donation if you want to help. You can also become a member of my Patreon where you get access to my election history videos early. And I just released a video about Howard Dean today, so you can check that out. Now, let's go ahead and look at the other elections in Florida. And I'll be talking about this in another video, but I think it's important to kind of look at it right now. So we have this state Senate district in Florida, the state Senate 11 district, which is on the west side of Florida. It includes Hernando, Pasco, Citrus, and Sumter counties. This should be a very Republican district. And when we talk about very Republican, we're talking about 67 to 70% Republican, okay? Especially when you don't have a third-party candidate. Being under 60% in the state house district is a huge swing to the Democratic side, okay? Now, if we go to the state representative seat here, District 90, again, this was a Democratic seat. This is all in Palm Beach County. This is a Democratic seat, and the last time the Democrats won it with 56% of the vote. They won the special election here with 63% of the vote. Now, the caveat with all the elections that we're going to talk about from this point forward is that they are special elections, and we do have to account for that. We don't have the dynamic like we had with Afton Bain's seat in the Tennessee 7th, where the actual raw totals equaled the totals of 2022. We don't have that. These are still being, looked at as like a special election, but this is a big swing. It ended up at the end being I believe a 12% swing to the Democrats. Now, another place where we saw the 12% swing and what everybody's talking about today is here in Georgia. So Eric, I'm not sure if it's Geisler or Gisler. He ended up winning against Dutch Guest. And someone made a funny joke saying, I guess Dutch Guest is now going to be deported back to the Netherlands. But anyway, this was a close one, 50.9 to 49.1. Now, to put this in perspective overall, before we get into the map a little bit, the last general election that we had was in 2024, so just a year ago, and the Republican won with 61.1% to the same Democratic candidate, 38.9%. So it's the same Democratic candidate that won before. And what was he campaigning on? He wasn't campaigning on identity politics. Go to his website. The first thing on his website, healthcare and affordability. The next thing, affordability. The next thing, taxes that are going to go toward the people of that district. Affordability is the issue of the campaign. Too bad the Democrats didn't figure that out in 2024. Anyway, if we go ahead and look at Dave's redistricting here, we can see that it isn't the darkest of reds, but it is red nonetheless. And we'll come back to this and I'll explain why this might be an issue for Republicans nationwide, or particularly in North Carolina. Yes, so we'll go to North Carolina. Now, one thing that you see, we have two counties here. This is Clark County. This is where Athens, Georgia is. You see a clear divide between Clark County and I think it's Oconee County here. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but you have a clear Republican Democratic divide. Now, it does include Athens, and it does include not the student housing at the University of Georgia, but neighborhoods where maybe juniors and seniors move off campus or something like that in a lot of this area here. Okay, so a lot of students and a lot of professors and others live in this area, share houses and stuff like that. But the University of Georgia campus is right here, and the student housing is right here. So you can see the student housing is actually outside of the district. The student housing is all put into this 122 district right here. So Clark County and turning out Clark County ended up being what made the difference here, which goes to the point of turnout. This is why you can't look at polls. Polls do not determine what turnout is. Whatever they did in Clark County, whatever the Georgia Democratic Party and the Clark County Democrats and everyone did in this race was exceptional because it was just enough to take the seat back. And now you have a bit of an incumbency advantage. Let's see if that goes away like Doug Jones in Alabama against Tommy, Guberville, or if they're actually able to make something. This is actually a promising a promising map. So it does have University of Georgia was highly influential in this, but not as influential as people might think. So I don't know why it says University of Georgia here when University of Georgia is like literally right here. So okay. All right. So I want to come back to this because it's the one that the district was 121. Now, if we look at the statistics and go down to 121 in Dave's redistricting, we see 55.85%. Why is this important? The reason why this is important is that if we look at the congressional map in North Carolina and look at the partisan leanings and look at how they drew these districts, you can see 54% or 55%, 55%, 56%, 54%, 55%, 55%, 54%, 53%, 52%. Okay. The districts that we have here in North Carolina are very similar to the district that we saw, even though it's a state house and a special election, very similar to the district that we saw in Georgia yesterday, and the Democrats flipped it. Okay, so it does show how vulnerable these seats actually are. And the biggest mistake that the Republicans made when they had North Carolina is they made these seats just a little too close for comfort. They flew a little bit, and we'll see what happens in a year from now. But it does seem like when they did this redistricting, they flew a little bit too close to the sun. They said, how much can we break this vote apart that maybe it's closer, but it won't flip over to the Democrats? And I think most of them thought, 56-44 would do it. That doesn't seem to be cutting it right now. And when we look at Georgia, we can't forget the Public Service Commission races that we had just a month ago and how those were absolutely lopsided. Something's happening in Georgia, and if I'm John Ossoff, I'm feeling really good right now. And then finally, I just want to talk about this Iowa special election. Yes, the Republican won it with 70% of the vote. The Democrat got 30% of the vote, but the Democrat shouldn't be getting anywhere near 30% of the vote. This should be like an 85% Republican district. So again, it is a special election, but the fact that the Democrats actually did quite well in this district, again, more evidence of a swing going over to the Democratic side. So overall, when we're looking at this, last night was amazing. And as I keep on asking, where is the Republican swing? And in most of these types of elections, you have give some, take some, or whatever. But where are the elections where the Republicans did better in the special election or whatever election than they did before? We're not seeing it. We're not seeing it at all. And with that, we're going to go ahead and end today. Thank you all very much. I'll see you in the next video. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share the video with your friends as well. Talk to you all later. Bye-bye.